With the Tyreek Hill trade sending shockwaves through the NFL landscape, there are two things that are very important to remember if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan. We're going to discuss them both. Plus, should a former division foe be looked at by the Arizona Cardinals before he's picked up by yet another NFC West division foe? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into another episode of Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. He's Bo Brock. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. You can check me out every Thursday on Locked On NFL. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. Although stagnant so far through free agency with shockwaves just, reverberating through the rest of the NFL. Thank you for chilling out and hanging with us. Tyreek Hill was traded for 1,000 picks, 6 to be exact, to the Miami Dolphins yesterday. And although it doesn't have anything directly correlated with the Arizona Cardinals, it brings up two things that need to be discussed. One, should people be comfortable with who is on the roster now as somebody that will definitely be on the roster in the future? Bo's going to bring up a name regarding that. And two, is this just another example of the Arizona Cardinals not doing enough to make that push towards improving upon last year's win total? Bobby Wagner visiting the Rams yesterday. Is Bobby Wagner a guy the Arizona Cardinals need to target? We're going to discuss that in the final segment, because even though he's probably going to have a higher price tag than the Cardinals are going to want to pay. And even though the Cardinals already brought in Nick Vigil, he's a guy that has, he has unmatched leadership and talent from the linebacker position, which could pay huge dividends for the young linebackers in Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Bo, what was the first thing that you thought of regarding the Arizona Cardinals when you saw the Tyreek Hill trade for 6 draft picks go through yesterday afternoon?
Thank God DeAndre Hopkins just took a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick and David Johnson's horrible contract. That's still one of the biggest bank heists of the NFL history that the Arizona Cardinals were able to get D-Hop at that price tag. But it's, a team in the Miami Dolphins that had a brutal year last year. They fired their coach, but they want to surround their young quarterback, Tua, who's entering his 3rd season, with the most weapons possible. There's an incredible amount of speed. You add Cheetah to that offense. You've already got Waddle, and you've, of course, got Chase Edmonds, who just signed the lucrative deal. Well, not lucrative for running backs, the caliber of Chase Edmonds. Just a ton of speed to burn, and they've got a new coach down there. He's probably going to run something similar to what they did in San Francisco. You just want the Arizona Cardinals to be more active than this. You want them to view themselves as, a couple pieces away. And when premier names hit the market, whether it's trade or free agency, whatever it may be, that this team's going to be, they're going to vie for their services. That's how the Rams are. That's how the Chiefs are. That's how the big boys do it. They're always looking to add talent. You're never content in this league because the next week you could be down a big-time player. The Arizona Cardinals saw what that looked like with DeAndre Hopkins out of the lineup for so many weeks. And it also tells me this, and the Chiefs already kind of told me this, and you look at the teams that were successful this year, you got to have like 2 big dogs. You really do. And the Chiefs had that with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Here's how it affects the Cardinals, Alex. They don't have to face Tyreek Hill now when the Chiefs come to town next season. That's fine, right? That's a little bit better. Juju Smith-Schuster, okay, it's a little bit easier bite to take than Cheetah and the rapport that he has with Patrick Mahomes. It's really fascinating. Cardinals fans know this. Andy Reid very rarely gets beat in a trade. Like, does he know something we don't know about Tyreek Hill? Unfortunately, the Cardinals learned a tough lesson that trading with Andy Reid, buyer beware with Kevin Kolb.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like the first thing that I thought of was, man, DeAndre Hopkins may not be an Arizona Cardinal after this year. Like if things don't go, I know it's kind of an irrational thought. There's an out in his contract after this season. Okay, so just because we think that he's going to retire a Cardinal or at least play for the next handful of years, play this contract out and restructure and add years and stay, Tyreek Hill to start 2021 was the most coveted wide receiver, probably not named Devontae Adams, to a roster. And with Patrick Mahomes, it made so much sense, and they made so much beautiful music together. But they didn't win. He had 200. Was it last year we had over 200 yards in the first quarter? Was that against Tampa Bay? I think it was like week 1 or week 2. I can't remember. It was early in the season.
It was the year before because I had him on my fantasy team in 2020, and it was fun. That was fun to watch.
What he's done for the wide receiver position is weird. It's not Antonio Brown. He shouldn't be doing what he does. He shouldn't be able to get all the separation he does. He's the fastest guy we've seen in a long time. He might be playing against the second fastest guy with Jalen Waddle right now in Miami. I thought that there's no promise of anything roster-wise at all. Player movement has never been more potent. The NBA used to have that. It used to be the NFL has everything, but the NBA has free agency and trades and player empowerment. The NFL overnight seemingly eclipsed that. And now Devontae Adams isn't on the Packers anymore. And Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback. Tyreek Hill isn't on the Chiefs anymore. So if you think that DeAndre Hopkins is 100% going to be an Arizona Cardinal, if things don't go to plan, those two teams I just mentioned, they win 12 or 13 games every year. And the only difference is Kyler Murray hasn't been paid yet. That's the only real difference because they paid both their quarterbacks, the Packers and the Chiefs did. And now you can't keep everybody because it becomes, obviously the salary cap becomes a fraction of what's the difference?
I don't see that as I think that they could have figured something out to keep those guys in. I mean, this is what I was kind of intrigued to see, and this is more of a whole league-wide scope is what can a guy like Patrick Mahomes adapt like a guy like Tom Brady did. But at least Patrick Mahomes had his opportunity to thrive. He had, we knew the trio. I don't think that Kyler Murray has necessarily been given that opportunity. He has DeAndre Hopkins, and he's had some nice players around him, but he hasn't had the playmakers of that caliber. I think we're waiting to see who's going to be, Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen to Kyler Murray being, and this is on the Cardinals level. I'm not calling them, Michael Jordan and the Bulls, but who's going to play those roles on the Cardinals? Still looking for that playmaker opposite DeAndre Hopkins. And, it just tells you also that guys who you don't think are available, if you want to look at it from the Cardinals side and who they have in house, but also look at it from a league wide perspective, it's like guys that you think are entrenched with franchises aren't going anywhere and are untouchable. Can you name a single guy that you can say without a shadow of a doubt ain't going anywhere?
Tom Brady.
Okay. He's 45 though. I mean,
yeah,
you're thinking about,
no.
I could see a scenario where, and it's doomsday for Chiefs Kingdom, but where Patrick Mahomes gets unhappy now, especially since you see Cheetah leave that building. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Travis Kelce's 33.
Yeah,
so they were 2 years ago before that 10-point comeback in the Super Bowl when Jimmy Garoppolo missed Emmanuel Sanders, and it was. That was it. You know what? They're going to win 5 Super Bowls. And you had the older cats say, we said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers. And it's interesting that even though Patrick Mahomes is different and he's more new age than what Aaron Rodgers was at his time coming up, who's to say it's not the same? And who's to say that Kyler Murray, if unhappy, will require, everything is up in the air, everything. It's not to say any of this is going to happen. But when you see all these big names constantly moving over the last 2 weeks, if you think that things won't change just because it's your team, that's not true. And let's hope everything stays the same. Let's hope the Cardinals can improve upon their roster. But as of now, all the rules thrown out the damn window. Alex Clancy, Bo Brock, Locked On Cardinals. Bobby Wagner visited the Rams yesterday. What does that mean? Should the Cardinals put their hat into the ring? Should the Cardinals do something aside from what they've done so far? or wait until the draft, because every day we get closer to the draft, it seems like the latter has a better chance of happening than the former. Alex Sensi Bobrock, Locked On Cardinals. We'll tackle that next. BetOnline.net. Dude, like, because you've got a, 10-month-old, 9-month-old? He grows like 4 months every month, so I can't keep up. 9 months?
He's taller than Tyreek Hill already, I believe.
Dang. Does he run a 4.3?
No, he does not. 9 months.
Yeah. So you can get this pacifier example. The NFL free agent has kind of been a pacifier between meals of the NCAA tournament, because we got basketball tonight, and BetOnline.net has you covered. Okay. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. As I've mentioned every time we talk about this, BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. I mean, it's going to be Duke, Kansas, right? Because that makes no sense to happen.
Please don't give Coach K the option of riding off into the sunset. I don't think they have enough shooting on Duke, but maybe. I mean, two blue bloods. I can't say I wouldn't be intrigued by that final matchup.
Yeah, and the Chet Ranchula, your boy over at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
Chet's a tough name.
Give me
Chet's
Zags Wildcats. Yo, come on, dude.
Chet's a tough name.
Brutal, especially when you're 7'1" and 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. What is that short for? Chetwick? That can't just be Chet. Follow him at Broadback. Follow me at Clayton's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. The Tyreek Hill trade, again, although not having direct ramifications for the Arizona Cardinals in any way, aside from the fact that he's not going to be wearing number 10 for the Chiefs when the Cardinals play the Chiefs in 2022, it just puts everything into question. It's like I don't believe you can have one conversation and say for sure, as you mentioned, that is, you can at least bank on this, that this player will be here next year. Mm-hmm. Regardless of where they are in the contract, regardless of how much money is still on a specific contract. Player empowerment is never higher. Draft picks are always valued more. Like, I think the Chiefs won the trade. Like, really quick. Do you like a first, 2 seconds, and 2 fourths? I believe that's what it was. And a sixth? Like, a first, 2 seconds, a fourth, and a sixth. That's a lot. They have 2 first-round picks. With it being such a deep wide receiver draft, they could draft one at 29 and 30. Like, who knows? The Chiefs are like, do you think that the Dolphins won this trade before we go back to Cardinals stuff? Like,
I mean, yeah, I think that they have a potential to win. I mean, if it helps develop Tua and it proves that Tua can be an NFL caliber quarterback, which I don't think he has proven yet in 2 seasons. If you give him, and he has no excuses now. I think that's worth it. I mean, it's a ton to give up, but in order to kind of keep up with the Joneses and beat out, we saw the Jets were in on the Tyreek Hill sweepstakes. Like, they wanted to couple their young quarterback with Tyreek Hill. I think that, yeah, it's a worthy risk, but I see what you're saying. It's like the Chiefs could either draft from that position or they could flip those picks, like they did for a franchise caliber left tackle, like they did in Orlando Brown. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do. They could move up. Do they want 23? Yeah, let's make a deal, Stevie boy. Let's do something. Wake up. But no, I see what you're saying. I think that the Chiefs, in their ability to find guys, they've found Kelsey, they found Tyreek Hill, they found Creed Humphrey, all beyond the first round. Like, they know how, as far as their front office and Andy Reid, who pulls a lot of strings down there, they know what they're doing. They have if they're armed with just picks and they stick and pick, they could probably find guys that are going to make an impact early.
Yeah, you know what? I want to push the Bobby Wagner conversation to the third segment. We talked about this before we cracked the mics. Do you think the Cardinals should look around the NFL, be like, you know what? Let's see what kind of draft capital we've got and see what kind of player would fit this scheme And instead of waiting for free agency or waiting for the draft, you go out, you leverage some future draft capital because we know that Steve Keim, less than ideal, worst drafting GM over the last 6 years. Do you go and say, you know what? And I brought up DK Metcalf, but you're right. They're not going to trade him in division. But if you offer them a first and a third for DK Metcalf and nobody else is, it's a business when it comes down to it. It's 2 out of 17 games. Okay, I think the interdivisional thing is leaning much more towards Steve Finley playing for every NL West team than what we've seen in recent memory. It was Johnny Damon, right? Johnny Damon, Red Sox to Yankees. Was that the tipping
free
point?
Agency, though. That was
yeah,
free
I know it
agency.
was a free agency, but still, if you offer them a first this year and a second next year, not only do you immediately become one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL, Seattle continues to just grab draft picks from other places, and that's how you rebuild. Like, do you think the Cardinals should look at that route as it doesn't matter? Nobody's untouchable.
Before you got into that, the interdivision thing, it's just like if they haven't been knocking on every door and calling every phone number that they have in their Rolodex and just seeing who's available, what the hell have they been doing the last week and a half? Like there's got to be something in the works. There absolutely has to be. And if you're somebody that's very critical of Steve Keim, and this podcast has been, like, we know that where he has had some success, it's pulling off trades that work in the favor of the Arizona Cardinals. And they do have a little bit more draft capital because of some compensatory picks, albeit they're at the end of the draft, 5th and 7th rounders. I think that, look, check in with some teams that don't have a lot of high expectations. Check in some teams that might have some players that are feeling a little bit more embattled these days. Look at some Baltimore receivers, maybe like a change of scenery for a Hollywood Brown. But look, I mean, I know DJ Moore just signed a big contract to stay in Carolina, so maybe he's off the table. Check back in on Atlanta as far as there's not a wide receiver available, but there's still some talent left on that roster. Just kick the tires and kick around, all these different franchises that, I mean, you never know. Just pick up the phone and ask and say, hey, this is what we have. Let's make a deal.
Yeah. Kyle Pitts would look really good in number 8 in red.
I think eight's retired. Isn't Larry Wilson wear 8?
Sure. It's just something like, it's another thing that we don't talk about. Like, we don't talk about that as an option ever. It's always free agency or the draft. It's cut and dry, free agency or the draft. Not really trades unless it's mid-season for a late round pick. For a guy in an expiring contract.
Go get somebody.
Yeah. Well, Devontae Parker's a name that's been thrown around a little bit because they have 38 running wide receivers now. The one thing I don't understand about the Tyreek Hill trade is, why didn't they trade Cedric Wilson as part of that deal? Cedric Wilson would be perfect for the Chiefs. They have 13 wide receivers. Like, it's wild how many receivers they have.
I'd have to see if the NFL has similar rules to the NBA. Where if you sign a deal, you're probably not eligible
to be traded. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's right. I don't know if we're kicking all the tires here with possibilities for what the Cardinals can do without discussing potentially trading for a wide receiver. Because that's, like, at this point, even though obviously it's cheaper to be drafting players to have higher impact, would you rather realize that you're in a 2-year window here to make Kyler Murray happy and go get good players now and worry about it later?
That's the reality. That's where they are. They're in that window.
They're in idiocracy. They're not in any sort of rational reality here. And I don't think that's like, you can defend the front office all you want. I don't agree. I don't think that the history of all of this lends me to think we will be let down. I hope that's not the case.
I don't feel like the front office has let us down as far as inactivity. They've actually been very active the last few off seasons, and it's like giving us things to talk about and get excited about. Now, have those things panned out, like as far as how they play out in the regular season? No, they lack the depth that was enough to really truly contend. But the pieces are in place. Like, two things can be true here: the piece in place, and then if you add complementary pieces that are still available, the Arizona Cardinals can improve this roster. But there's also reality of that this team might think that might feel content, which is a nightmare scenario for the fan base, and that they just want to move forward and just add through the draft. Like that would be a disaster. I think that they should have learned a lesson from post Dak Ertz trade that you can never be content. Like you always have to be adding talent. The Rams are always adding talent. The previous season Super Bowl winner, the Bucks were always adding talent. That's just, you have to. It's the only way, because this game is so violent and it's so injuries happen so often that you have to, even when you feel like you have depth, you could be SOL the next week. So the fact that they're inactive with this window, it's like they're riding this line between, hey, we're going to go for it, and hey, we're building and being patient for the future. It's like, no, you can't. There's no fine line. It's you either go one direction or the other.
It's like playing defense in baseball and a seeing eye single just went through the middle. It's like they're not anywhere. They're on an island, and they're not making a decision one way or another. And it's frustrating. We'll see if it changes. We're going to find out hopefully in the next handful of days. We said that a week and a half ago. Alex Lancey Bobrok, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL. You can check me out today with Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans on Locked On NFL. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Just like Locked On Cardinals, it's free and available on all platforms. Should the Cardinals sign Bobby Wagner? Should the Cardinals intercept the meeting that the Rams and Bobby Wagner had yesterday via Covert Up and Michael Bidwell's fancy new plane? Alex Lancey Bobrok, Locked On Cardinals, will unpack that next. Final segment. Follow him at Bob Rack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment, like, subscribe. We love this. We love doing this. Thank you to everybody who was along for the ride. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bobby Wagner is
tomorrow,
visiting.
By the way.
Yeah, we do have a big announcement tomorrow. You're going to have to wait till the final segment. Yeah, we got a big announcement. And
It's called a tease, folks.
It's called a tease. I mean, yeah, we've both done better teases in our day, but it was effective. Bobby Wagner visits the Rams yesterday. Cue Owen Wilson in Armageddon. Oh, so scariest environment imaginable. That's all I had to say. Scariest environment imaginable.
I thought you were just going to say, wow.
Wow. Well, I was waiting for you for that. I don't have that. You have that and Harry Carey down.
Oh,
we haven't done the Harry Carey hour, but Bobby Wagner on the Rams would be a nightmare.
Really?
Yeah. And if, like, remember when they signed Clay Matthews and Clay Matthews couldn't get a job after leaving the Packers? And, like, what is going on here? And Clay Matthews showed that, he was toward the end of his run in the NFL. And really the last thing we remember is them changing the leveraging rule because of him when you can't fall on a quarterback. And now that's now penalized. They brought Eric Weddle in, who's fine. And obviously before this run recently, Bobby Wagner has a lot more to offer now in his career than either of those players did, in my opinion. Even though Eric Weddle, as a safety and as a leader for that safety room, was obviously very important. Bobby Wagner still strikes fear in opposing offenses. And I don't think Clay Matthews or Eric Weddle did at that point. Bobby Wagner has been the most, since Fred Warner took the helm at this, the most undervalued linebacker, at least in the NFC. Fred Warner got paid. Bobby Wagner's forgotten about. I think the Rams signing Bobby Wagner would be a nightmare, even though it wouldn't cause that many waves. Do you think the Cardinals should put their hat in the ring, or do you think at this point they've set themselves up where they can't because they have other glaring needs?
Right. Yes. The latter there. And also, I think Bobby Wagner's steady still. I just don't think he's an impact maker. Like, he complements what the Rams want to do on defense very well. He would do, and as you mentioned, the off the field stuff, the leadership is something that would be huge for any organization that adds Bobby Wagner. But it would only be from an attempt to keep him from going to a division rival. But I don't think that there's enough there. You want the reps to go to your young linebackers, Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons. You're all in on those guys. This just becomes another, block to them. So I just don't think it's a good fit for the Cardinals. But yeah, if you're a Cardinals fan and you see that, you see the rap sheet tweet saying that he's visiting the Rams and they probably won't let him leave the building without a deal. The other part I paraphrased there. I think that should strike fear. Yeah, that's it's just the rich getting richer as far as the Rams go, and they're starting to rebuild that defense as they had some key departures. Von Miller, Sebastian Joseph Day from the interior of that defensive line, and Darius Williams, a cornerback. So they've got to start to add talent to that defense, and Bobby Wagner is certainly that. I just don't think, like, as far as his pass coverage and as far as him being disruptive and creating negative plays, I don't see him as the player he used to be. But as far as a steady voice and tackler, it's good. He's still a good player, very good player.
Yeah, and I mean, and I agree. I mean, right when I said it, it's, well, obviously the Cardinals, all of this didn't happen overnight. This is the culmination of a lot of decisions made, some good, some bad, that has put the Cardinals in the situation they're in. And doesn't mean they can't get out of it. It doesn't mean they can't open up cap space. It doesn't mean they can't bring in impact players and make a push like they did last year. Okay. And you can't just look at where they are now as its own movie. This is the next in the trilogy, or whatever, the octology of Steve Keim, the novology, the ninth one of Steve Keim. In the I mean, a lot of it's a tragedy. There's some comedy, but there's some remember the Titans moments. But this is just the next iteration of the Arizona Cardinals, and it's not a standalone. Mm-hmm. This is the culmination of a lot of decisions made over the years, and they're not in a position to sign Bobby Wagner. Should they be? Absolutely. If you look, so let's go revisionist history for the last 2 or 3 minutes of this podcast. Say the Cardinals draft, say even last year, 2 years ago, they drafted Isaiah Simmons, okay? Because I don't think that's going to be looked at as a bad draft pick. And you already don't. Mm-hmm. Tristan Wirfs being all-pro his rookie year and winning a Super Bowl kind of put a damper on Isaiah Simmons. It's not Isaiah Simmons' fault. He was misused his rookie year, okay? Instead of drafting Zaven Collins next year, Zaven Collins could be an all-pro 2 years from now. We have no idea. But for the information we have now, if you were to have drafted a wide receiver at this point, or a corner, or an offensive lineman at 16 overall last year, and you don't have a crowded linebacker room, they 100% could have signed Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made a lot more sense.
I mean, that's why people knock getting that position in the first round. That's not like a premium position, the inside linebacker, even though, Bobby Wagner played at such a high level and Fred Warner plays at such a high level, and why, some teams are seeking those young linebackers that they can control for a while at that price tag that the Arizona Cardinals will have the luxury for. But yeah, I mean, and also Isaiah Simmons is going to have, like, we're seeing Tua play well with Jalen Waddle, a guy that he played in college with. And we saw it play out with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Like, also Isaiah Simmons has the negative stigma of he's not CeeDee Lamb. Like, you couldn't pair, like, he stopped you from pairing Kyler Murray with one of his college teammates in CeeDee Lamb. And we don't know what that looks like. So, but along with all the offensive linemen they pick, like any of the offensive linemen after Isaiah Simmons, as you mentioned, Wirfs, Mekhi Becton, I know he's dealt with some injuries, and the kid from Alabama that you and I both liked, that I can't remember. He plays for the Browns now. I don't know why his name escapes me.
Jedrick Wills.
Jedrick Wills. All of them would have been fine. They all would have. I think I would have felt the same about those guys. Like, I think Isaiah Simmons, over 100 tackles last year. He still needs to know more of what his assignment is each and every play. But he showed that he belonged, at least, where his rookie year he didn't. But look, the Arizona Cardinals have taken a couple steps back, because I think they were close, if not there, to where they were an appealing destination because they were going for it. And because they're trying to ride this line, free agents, and especially with the stuff that has come up with Kyler, it's not a slam dunk that, hey, this is a team that's going to contend right away. There is a lot of gray area as far as what the future, in the near future of this organization is going to be.
And really happy you did that, because we're going to go long 3 minutes to pay off the tease from yesterday's show. Is there a world, and it's interesting that we're talking about this now because Tyreek Hill has been traded since the last podcast. Is there a world where, say, next year comes around, Tua didn't get it done, and Miami's like, hey, we got a couple draft picks we can throw you for Kyler Murray. Is there a world where Kyler Murray is traded before getting a contract extension by the Cardinals? Unless this is barring them going 5-12 this year. Like, say they finish 11-5, 11-6 next year. Say they lose in the first round of the playoffs again. Is there a world where Kyler Murray can get traded before signing his first big deal as an NFL player?
Here's what I say about that, because I think that if Kyler Murray is appealing to the Miami Dolphins, who have this roster that's in place and they've got all these receivers, all this speed, and they're just a quarterback away, they're viewing Kyler Murray as that guy. That means he had a really good season. And I think the Arizona Cardinals, they've been answered, like, as far as the questions that they want answered, they're answered, and he needs to be as locked up. I would say that's good for the Cardinals. I just think that he's answered those questions. He's answered the fan base's questions. The only thing is, how much do you pay him, and then put name to paper on the contract.
Agreed. Alex Clancy Bobrock, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocky bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up tomorrow, we do have some pretty big news that we're going to discuss. You're going to have to wait till the final segment. Now that is a fat trim tease right there, baby. Alex Clancy Bobrock, Locked On Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.